Yeah, man. So this is it's episode 1.
There you go.
I've been wanting to do this for a long time, man. I watch a lot of podcasts. I think I watch podcasts more than I do regular TV.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's one of those things that, to me, I feel like you learn a lot more than TV.
Yeah.
TV now.
And plus, going down the road, it kills up a lot of time going up and down the road.
It does. We're filled with so much negativity nowadays, on regular television, that it almost makes it not worth watching. What I wanted to bring to this Mic'd Up with Joe Webb podcast, the thing that I wanted to bring to it was let other people into the life of someone else. That way they can learn. I think it's good that we learn a little bit about each other. We stay so wrapped up in our own path and our own way and in our own head, social media wise, where everybody's always worried about, let me show myself off.
Yeah.
And we don't take enough time to talk and to learn from each other. And that was kind of one of the bigger things I wanted to do with this, just catch up with people, man.
Yeah, man. We all live in different places. We all come from different places, but deep down we're all kind of the same. So you just gotta take that time to learn about somebody, But you'll find a connection somewhere, whether you live here or on the West Coast, from the East Coast, or from the North, or from the South. It's all been a lot of places, man. But you start talking to somebody, you can find a common ground somewhere.
Yeah. And we're gonna find some common ground today.
Yeah, man.
We got a lot to talk about.
Cool.
We've known each other a while.
Yeah.
So I want to take this time to introduce my podcast to you. Mic'd Up with Joe Webb. Just an average Joe here, wanting to talk to some folks and get to know, and just kind of bring a little entertainment and joy to people's lives. That's kind of what it's about. I've always wanted to do this. It's something that has always interested me. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Like I said, it's Mic'd Up with Joe, and today we got my boy Tyler Thurmond on here.
Thanks for having me.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, man.
So I want to start from the beginning. I want to know where Mr. Thurmond comes from, as far as family, where you grew up.
Yeah, man.
And how it all got started.
Yeah. Grew up in a small town up in northwest Georgia, Adairsville, Georgia. Grew up there most of my childhood, all the way up till I was 14. Played baseball just like any other kid did. I enjoyed going hang out with my friends. Lived in the neighborhood, so a bunch of boys, went through the neighborhood and played together. I mean, growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, you were still able to do that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like now you kind of have to stand guard with that. Got to be careful with who you hang out with sometimes. But, man, I had a good group of friends growing up. Just a laid-back country kid, you just went outside and got your knees scraped up and you rubbed dirt on it and you went home.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah.
And Adairsville is where me and you met in the 8th grade.
Yep. Another buddy of ours, Taylor, his dad started a baseball team, travel ball. Travel ball was nothing like it is now.
100%.
Yeah, it's a totally
100%.
different world now. But his dad started up a travel ball team, and I was trying out for our middle school team, and I think you were too. And I'm leaving. My mom come to pick us up, and I'm leaving, and he taps me on the shoulder as I'm walking out. He's like, "Hey, man," he's like, I really like what I see. Are you interested in playing ball for me?" I was like, "Well, yeah." And this is back when like East Cobb baseball was really blowing up, and I was like, "Travel ball, yeah, that sounds like fun."
Yeah.
So I went home and talked to my mom and my dad about it, and they was like, "Yeah, if you want to get out of rec ball, if you want to play at a higher level, you're looking to make something out of it, then yeah, we'll give it a shot. So went out for Taylor's dad, and he let me play, and I made a jump to catcher. I was a second baseman growing up, and then wanted to be more involved. And I guess when I was starting to grow up, I got a little bigger, so all my speed went away from being a middle infielder. But yeah, I went back behind the plate, and I really fell in love with it.
Okay.
And my dad was a catcher too, so that really helped with the transition back there, growing up. So.
Well, I feel you on the middle school ball thing. Never made any of those teams.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I loved baseball,
I didn't make the team.
but never made not one of those teams.
Yeah.
But what we got to experience with Brian playing travel ball, it was some memories that I definitely will tell my kids about too.
Yeah.
It I don't know, baseball, and you're the same as me. Baseball has always been, it's always been number one love. It's always been, man, I thought I was going to be a baseball player the rest of my life until I realized I can't even make a middle school team, and I had to.
Yeah, and see, man, that's you see, and we'll get into this a little later, but seeing like pro guys not having the money and not having the coaching and being able to just be naturally good, and it's a God-given talent, and just be good. And they're nice, humble people, come from a good background. They just ain't got the money for the training or the coaching,
Right.
But they go up, and, man, they make the big leagues, and you see mom and dad up in the crowd, man. You can't help but, like, get a little teary-eyed for them because you're like, man, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That is just watching somebody achieve a dream or a goal, man, like, especially like that, is just awesome.
I mean, how was it? How cool was it that we got to grow up in the town that we did? Up in Adairsville.
Very small town, man.
It was really cool.
Everybody knew everybody. You couldn't get any trouble because everybody knew everybody. You'd tell your mom or dad on you, man.
Dude, it was. I mean, it was such a cool town, and Adairsville is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Adairsville was such a cool town, and I remember. I tell people this story all the time. I remember watching Nigel Curtis and Vic Beasley dunk in the 8th grade.
Yep. I played football one year.
To this day, I still remember that.
I played football one year, and Vic Beasley was on the team. And I was like, that was like my claim to fame growing up. I was like, especially when he got drafted, I was like, I played football with that guy.
Yeah.
And then when I went to high school, I was a freshman. Zach Wheeler was a senior. We went to the same high school.
Yeah, up here in Dallas.
In East Paulding, yeah. And now he's throwing for the Phillies in the World Series, and you're like, that dude was throwing from home plate over the center field wall in high school.
Dude.
And it's just crazy, man.
Insane.
Yeah.
It was it was just the crazier part to me, honestly, was we came from that town, me and you did, and I went in the military. We kind of went our separate ways, and you ended up leaving Adairsville and coming up here to Paulding County.
Yep.
But it was crazier how, I guess it was 10, 12 years later, I found out that you lived right down the road.
Literally 5 minutes down the road.
Yeah, you lived right down the road, and it was really cool for me and you to catch up, talk baseball, talk, racing, talk all those things. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, man. I think some people are destined to be in your life and in your life for a reason.
So what brought you back up here to Paulding from Adairsville?
Yeah, so my dad lives here. My mom and dad got divorced when I was little, but my dad has lived here in Paulding County his whole life, obviously, but our family has been on the same piece of land before the Civil War. So it's just been passed down generation from generation, and like my great-grandmother, she lived there for her whole 98-year life. My papa, my granddaddy, he's lived there his whole life, right there on that same road and that same piece of property.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so we've been right there the whole time. So that's how I got down here.
And, every time I go to your house over there and talk to your grandpa, sincerely, I mean, one of the coolest dudes.
Yeah, he's got some cool stories, man.
He really does.
You just sit on the porch with him. We used to do that when I lived with him. I lived with him for probably 10 to 12 years, just with him, you know. And so we still do, but we sit on the front porch, watch the sun go down, and you just listen to his stories about how when he was our age, him going off, getting in trouble, and
I was
like
about
that.
to say he's still that man that still sits on the side of the road, or I'm sorry, sits on the porch and stares at the road and just kind of watches cars go by, and you can tell that he sits back and kind of thinks of what that area
used to
look like.
Yeah.
Back when, you know, he was growing up to be a man with him and his wife and
having a kid,
raising grandkids. You can just tell he looks back on all that.
Yeah, he had my dad. They had my dad when my grandma was 16 years old. You know, he was 18, 19 at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, and so just me, like I remember, I'm getting to the point now, I remember when my dad was my age now. Like I remember when my dad was 30.
Yeah.
You know, that's, so that and just coming from good stock and having good people and good men around me the whole time is really
and it teaches you, man.
Yeah.
It teaches you. You learn from. I mean, you learn from mistakes. You learn from watching people.
Yep. You
learn from growing up around a certain type of person. Some folks grow up just around women, you know, and they draw certain qualities, and then some grow up just around men, and we draw those certain qualities.
Yep.
Sometimes they don't grow up around either.
Right.
You know, they
have to
may
learn out
grow
for
up.
theirself,
No, exactly. May have to defend for themselves. And me personally, I grew up around just my mother, so I didn't have that grandpa or dad to look up and talk to. Mine was, you got to figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I look, and I'm not saying that out of pity. I'm saying that out of, basically, it made me who I am.
Yeah. And
if that makes sense.
And you're the older brother too in your family.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the oldest brother of, I got 3 younger brothers and a sister, and just helping raise those up, you know, and seeing them succeed is kind of like seeing your own kid succeed, I guess, because my brothers, their dad died, and watching my little brothers grow up and make something out of themselves, as a big brother, it really helps and makes you feel good. Like, I'm really, really proud of my little brothers, man.
100%.
And, like, when you got married, man, like, watching your little brother, like, give the speech and stuff like that, man, you can't ask for much better than that, man. That was just awesome.
Oh, my gosh. He, that story was funny. So he had a couple more drinks than probably what he should have before the wedding. We're popping shots.
Yeah.
And I think we finished this whole handle of Crown Royal. I mean, we were split between all the guys.
Yeah.
We had us a little bit, and then on top of a little bit of beer, and we get into the wedding, and he said, I want to say something. And I said, uh-oh. And I love him for this. Zach, if you're watching, it was one of the greatest moments of my life, you even talking about that. So don't think I'm mocking that by any means. But still to this day, he's like, man, I messed your wedding up, didn't you? I'm like, no.
That was like the best part, man.
People love that part.
Yeah.
People have came up to me and been like, man, when your brother got up there, it almost made me cry.
Yeah, because it's genuine from the heart.
He meant it.
Like, you can sit there and plan the whole wedding out like verbatim, but when it's the little moments like that just come up naturally, man.
Dude, he meant it.
Yeah, and that's really what it's all about.
He meant it, and it, like I said, it was one of the coolest moments.
Yeah, for sure.
For me,
for sure.
It was not only getting married is a cool moment, and then you got somebody that says something like that from the heart. It was
true.
sweet.
Yeah.
Dude, so I want to tell you first and foremost that because we've always been social media friends on Facebook and whatnot. So even though we weren't like close around each other,
we've kind of kept up with each other.
We kind of kept up, and I seen what was going on in your life.
Sure.
So first and foremost, I want to tell you that one thing I admire about you and your family is, dude, when y'all want to do something, like, y'all go do it. Yep. And you don't say, like, hey, I'm just going to do the 9 to 5. I'm going to go work at Shaw. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but in y'all's head, you reminded me a little bit of myself, I think is what it is. I took that leap of faith. I moved to Nashville. I took another leap of faith, went in the military. So you kind of reminded me a little bit of myself, and I think that's why I've always admired that. I mean, I've watched you be an umpire. I've watched you. Now you're a pilot.
Yeah.
I mean, how freaking cool is it to even say that you're a pilot?
Yeah.
I mean, that's sick. So one of the first things that I do remember is I remember your dad and you. Y'all would do, what do you call it? Is it clown things? Is that the word for it?
Yeah, so how all that got started was my dad was a police officer, and I'm sure you'll have him on, and he can tell you the whole story, but he was a cop in Atlanta, and as most cops, and even in the military, man, you see, like, the worst in people and like, bad situations. So majority of the time, when a cop meets somebody, it's not a good situation.
Right.
So, and eventually that starts wearing on you, and I'm sure you know about that being in the military and stuff. But he went on vacation to Sarasota, Florida, and that's where the Ringling Brother house was. There's 7 Ringling Brothers that started the circus, and they have a big museum down there, and that's where one of the big mansions is, right, that one of these brothers lived in.
Okay.
And so So he went down there for vacation, and he comes back, and he's like, I'm going to do that. He's like, I can do that. And so he wanted it to be an escape for him to get away from the police job.
Okay.
Right. So he did that, and he was doing nothing but parades and stuff like that just to get, make it fun. And so then it turned into, well, I'm going to go start a little show. Right. So he'd go to, like, nursing homes or something like that and do, like, a 20-minute thing, and he'd leave, right?
Okay.
So then it turned into, well, hey, man, you can probably start making some money at this, right? And he's like, no, man, like, I just want to make it, fun. I don't want to turn it into a job. Well, long story short, we turn into, like, a 15-foot cargo trailer, right? Then it turns into an 18-wheeler. Now we're going to fairs, festivals. He's quit his police job, and we're on the road 8 to 10 months out of the year.
Wow.
Yeah. So how I got started in that was, like, again, just being a kid and going to racing events and stuff like that. We were coming home from the monster trucks one night in Atlanta, and we were almost home, and he's like, hey, man, I want you to start doing this with me, And I've always been, like, a late, shy kid, I've always enjoyed, like, logistics and stuff of how, like, things go up and down the road. Yeah, so we're coming home from Atlanta one night, and he's like, hey, I want you to start doing this with me, right? And I've always been, like, a shy kid. Like, I never really wanted to be in the front, right? Now, he's always in spotlight, front center. And I was like, okay, like, whatever. Like, and I would dress up and do, like, a parade or something with him. That was okay. But then when we started the show, it was like a small spot here or there, just he would be like the main focus, and then I would come out for like one little segment of it, and then I'd be done. But eventually, as I got older, I was about 10 years old at that time when we got started with that. And so after that, we're in about the 15-foot cargo trailer at this point. And so he's like, I want you to start learning skills, like juggling and walking on stilts and stuff like that. And I was like,
wow.
Okay, cool. So he bought me a pair of stilts, and I'd be like in the front yard, like learning how to walk on these things. And so did that, and I finally taught myself. And being around baseball all the time, you had baseball, so you learn how to juggle, or I did. And eventually just playing around, I got to 4. I could juggle 4 at a time.
No kidding.
Yeah. And then a few people that I grew up with too around, and you meet people as you're going up and down the road, and they teach you some stuff, or they let you play on that. That's like a playground. It's like a playground after a while,
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned how to do that. Then I was like, all right, cool. I want to learn how to do the wire, like the high wire.
Dude, you're joking.
Yeah. So it's crazy how you could go somewhere and watch somebody like walk on a piece of cable that's like bigger than your thumb, and you're like, they got magnets in their shoes or something, but no, and eventually you learn how to do it. So I learned how to do that. Eventually I started down low, right? Because you don't want to get up there and fall, but started about 2 feet off the ground and eventually got up to like 6 feet. Yeah. So learned how to do that. Then, so again, we're getting bigger, we're getting more popular in the industry, and so we go by, me and my granddad and my uncle, we go to Nashville, and my dad wants us to go look at a semi-trailer. I was like, okay. So all 3 of us ride up there one morning, and he buys a semi-trailer. It's a 53-foot semi-trailer. And I was like, who's going to drive this thing? Like, he don't have a CDL. Like, nobody in our family knows how to drive these things. So he goes to truck driving school.
Now, who was this?
Well, my dad goes to truck driving school.
Okay.
Me, my granddad, and my uncle, we all go to Nashville to look at the trailer.
Okay.
Because he's going to buy a refurbished trailer.
Wow.
So he goes up there, he buys a truck, buys the trailer, and dude, it turns into this like whole 3-ring ordeal.
No kidding.
He builds a camper inside the trailer. So you would live in like the top half. There was 2 floors to it. Underneath was where all the equipment would go. The last 10 feet of the trailer was nothing but cargo space. So that's where like you would pack the show up. And underneath, but like in the top part of it, the floor sat about, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 feet off the actual floor of the trailer. And so that's where we had 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, and a full bathroom, and all in this 53-foot semi-trailer. It was a camper, but it was in a semi-trailer. And so that's what we went up and down the road in for probably 8-9 years.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Now, what were some of the places that y'all
Oh man.
would do?
So we mostly.
And we got to get into one of the funniest moments, or like a crazy road story. We got to get into one of those.
All right. So yeah, we would mostly go to like fairs and stuff.
Okay.
Like these really big state fairs and stuff like that. We'd be there for 5 to 10 days at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, and you'd load it up. You'd leave home. You'd be gone for 3 or 4 months, and you'd be at a different town every other week or every week. And you just live out of the trailer, making money, going up and down the road with your family. So that's what we did for 9 or 10 years. Places, man, we went from South Florida all the way up to Vermont, man. But you would go with the same people, like other shows and stuff. You just turn into this one big family, and you'd be like, okay, cool, we're with the Tiger Show this week, or we're with the Magic guy this week, and you know all these people, and you'd be, after the fair would close and your shows were done, you'd all go pop a beer or something and just go hang out.
Yeah, yeah.
And just talk, because you were all doing the same thing. And so, but man, like Charlie Daniels, man, you're a country guy. I've been on Charlie Daniels' bus. One of the most humble human beings that I've ever met was Charlie Daniels.
Just from being on the road.
On the road,
like that.
yeah. And
wow.
Be up on stage, and I saw him probably 8 times in concert. He was my very first concert when I was 3 months old. But I saw him 8 times in concert, and then right before he passed away, dude, he was like 80 something. But dude, he would, the lights go down, and man, that first song would hit, and he would just rock for an hour and a half, man, just awesome. And then he'd go back on the bus. One time we was in Cherokee, North Carolina.
Now these are the stories.
Yeah,
right here.
One time, and it was Charlie's story, but we're sitting there all waiting on him, and you see the bus pull in, and he's like, he comes out on stage. It starts like 30 minutes late. And he's like, man, I had to finish watching my Tar Heels play. And I was like, man, like you got to the point you can just like delay a concert for you can watch the end of a football game.
Like, that's cool and all.
But for me.
But Tar Heels, though?
Yeah, that was from him, though.
You'd be like, I was good with it, too. You said Tar Heels, go Dogs.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But, man, crazy story, man. Just up and down the road. The crazy stories is, like, a lot of people, you post, like, all this success and stuff. People don't see the work that goes into something like that. They don't see you broke down. They don't see you broke down on the highway at 2 a.m. and you're having to wait on somebody to come pick you up, and you're 500 miles from home. Like, what do you do?
Wild. Now, would y'all park at truck stops, or how when you would sleep? You said you slept in the trailer, right?
Yeah. So where a lot of Walmart parking lots.
Oh, okay.
A lot of Walmart. If we didn't make it in time, like if
being a little lot lizard.
Yeah, but most of the time you try to make it a route.
Okay.
You know, that way you don't backtrack. But you make it so most of the time you would close on Sunday, and then you would have Monday as a travel day and a setup day, and then you would open again on Tuesday and stay there until either Saturday or the next week. So you try to make it a nice little road schedule. But man, crazy road stories. There's so many.
Y'all were in a Zach Brown video too, right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Goodbye in Her Eyes. My dad called me. I don't know any of like how they made contact or anything, but. And
this was still the circus act when y'all were in that Zach Brown video.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay.
Yeah. So like sure. all of the circus equipment. There was a few other people. Like there was a sideshow group there that they were different from us, but yeah, like all the circus equipment other than like the tent was all of our stuff and our people. Yeah. But yeah, that was so cold. We shot that in his backyard, and Zach was a really good dude. He's really down to earth, and like got to meet his whole band and his whole family because we shot it in his backyard. So
yeah,
like his whole family was there, and we shot it all in like one day too, which is unheard of.
What was me and you were riding down the road the other day, and you told me a story about a tent.
Yeah, so that tent in that video was the first time that tent had ever been put up.
Okay.
Right? It was a brand new tent, and they rented it from a rental company, and the rental people told them, hey, this is the first time it'd been put up or whatever. Well, it was like an older circus video. Like they wanted to have that Waters for Elephants kind of feel, if you know what that is. Just like the old school days, like middle 1900s, I guess, like old school.
Okay.
Kind of day. So they took like crushed brick and sprayed this whole brand new white canvas tent. It's probably close to a $30,000 tent, right? And they're sitting there spraying this tent with this crushed brick, and it stains the tent. And because you only see the first part, like the front of the tent in the video, you don't see the back. They've only stained part of the tent. Like they don't even stain the whole thing, so it's all white.
And this is a rental.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
What did this rental company say?
I don't know. We packed our stuff and left.
Like, I'm out.
Yeah.
That's awesome. that man, that is and see, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Please tell me one more person that we went to school with that was part of a circus act. Nobody. That's what I'm saying. That's how cool that is.
Yeah.
That's how out of the box that you guys are, and I love that, man. I admire that so much. Your dad is an actor.
Yeah.
How many people from Dallas, Georgia do you know that are actors? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's so cool to me.
It's weird. That's dad to me, you know, like
I've also been a dreamer.
Yeah. You gotta have goals in life, and everybody has their own God-given talent.
Right.
You know, everybody, whether it's sewing or if it's singing country music or it's calling balls and strikes, whatever it is, everybody has that one thing that they're good at. And if you work hard enough, you can use that in your workplace or whatever, right?
Right.
So if you set up long-term goals for yourself, you can do anything you want to with it. Now, whether you can survive and do it is totally different, but you got it. Like I said, you put yourself around good people that can help you and that helps push you, then you'll get there.
So the next thing that I want to ask you would be, you went, so that was growing up high school wise when you were kind of doing the circus thing.
Yeah, I did that I did that for about 8-9 years. I stopped when I was, full time. I stopped when I was about 18.
Okay. And then what made your decision? How did you come up with the idea that you wanted to be an umpire?
Baseball. So the last year I was on the show, there was a documentary crew that came around and shot my whole last season on the show. And just being a hard-headed 18-year-old with his dad 24/7, and eventually you want to be like your dad growing up, so you try being tough like your dad, and eventually you start butting heads a little bit. And so just being 18 years old and wanting to be able to do my own thing and being stuck, every 18-year-old wants to travel, but when you're out there on the road, it gets hard and tiring. But just butting heads all the time.
Okay.
And so eventually I left, I think it was September of my last year, so I left like 2 months early of the show. So we still had a few more shows to go to, but I was in North Carolina. I think I packed my stuff and left pretty much. But went home, moved in with my grandparents. I needed something to do because I was 18. I was jobless now. So got on the computer. I was like, I need to go back to baseball. Like, what can I do with baseball? So I called the county and I was like, hey, y'all need umpires for like softball or baseball or anything like that? And they was like, well, we don't do it here with the county, but we can send you the guy's number that takes care of all that. And I was like, okay, cool. So I did like fast pitch softball for like a whole year of like rec ball stuff.
Okay.
Right. And I'd always wanted to go to like umpire school, and like you talk about chasing dreams and stuff. You write stuff down that you want to do or set like goals, and I would write them down and put them on my door. So that way, every time I walked out my bedroom door, you look at it, right? So when I was 14, I actually called the guy that ran the school, and I was like, hey, am I too young, to start? He's like, well, man, you're still in school, like, and I was like, okay. So I was 18, needed a job. I eventually worked my way up to like high school baseball going around here. And then, man, my first varsity game, I was like, man, this is the big leagues for me,
Yeah, right.
Because I was basically a senior in high school doing high school baseball, right? So I'm the same age as these kids. So I'm just umpiring high school baseball. Do that for about a year. And then I was like, man, I've always wanted to go to umpire school. So umpire school is basically a 5-week program down in Florida. And if you're good enough, they would offer you a job in the minor league baseball. Right. So I'm 18. All the experience I have is just rec softball and a little bit of high school baseball. That's all I've ever done. And so I go down there for 5 weeks, and like day 4, I'm like, you think baseball is like a fan, but you get like deep in the rule book as they do, and you're like, I don't know a clue. I have no idea of any of these rules.
It's a lot more technical.
Oh yeah, like
okay.
you see people on TV, and you hear like commentators like, what is this rule now? And I'm sitting there yelling at them now, but people don't have any idea of how technical the rules in baseball are.
Oh man.
Because everybody wants either black or white, right? But the way the baseball rule book is written and the way the wordage is leaves a lot of the judgment up to the umpire. Even though we still have replay, it's still down to the judgment of the umpire with a lot of it.
Okay.
So
yeah.
even though you disagree with what's going on, the way the rule is written is still up to the umpire to judge on it. So that's why the old school, back in the day, you'd have like knockdown drag arguments with the
now in baseball.
Oh, the game is totally different.
It's becoming.
Oh, dude, it's so different.
You've got a human out there, but it's going to get judged on a computer.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Yeah.
So basically, you got the computer makes the final say, but you just got the human translating what the computer just said.
Yeah,
you know?
That in a nutshell. Yeah. There's some.
I know it's getting crazier.
Yeah, there's some still like runners, lane interference and stuff. There's still some judgment calls that are still up to the umpire. The umpire is so essential to baseball. Everybody's like, get rid of them. You can't get rid of them. It's impossible. They will always be there. But going back, that was in 2013. So at the very end of this course, they sit you down one-on-one, and they're like, okay, we want you to go get more experience. Come back another year. You didn't make it. It's basically a 5-week tryout, right? You have test, you have on-field training, and then it's basically a 5-week tryout, right? So I didn't make it that year. And so they have like solid college summer leagues. So I went and worked the Northwoods League up in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and that year. And so went back in 2000. That was in 2013. 2014, my grandparents, they helped me pay for it the first time. 2014, they were like, hey, if you want to go back, you're going to have to pay for it.
Is that an expensive school to go to?
Back then, it was $5,000.
Okay.
For that.
Yeah.
So they're like, if you want to go back and do it again, you're going to have to pay for it. What you're trying to teach you, hey, you got to go work for what you want, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's just handed to you, you're not going to appreciate it. And so I needed another job. So I called Dad back up. Hey, I need to come back.
Can I come back to the circus?
Yeah, Dad? Yeah. So went there for another year, and went back in 2015, and same thing.
Did you ever blow fire out of your mouth?
No, I juggled fire, but I never blew it.
Never blew fire.
No.
What about a dirt bike in a case?
That's one thing. That was one thing that I wanted to do, but I never got to do it. The wheel of death thing.
Yeah.
Where you walk on the inside of it. I did that. That was like so much fun.
Are you serious?
Oh, it was a blast. It's dangerous, but you had to respect it. But it was so much fun. Yeah.
Holy crap!
It was so much fun. But yeah, so went back in 2015, and so the way it worked, you either got sent home, you didn't make it, or you got to go to the next process of the trial, right?
Right.
So the next process was a week long, right? So now you got 2 groups from another school. You take, let's say 15 and 15, right, from each school. Those 30 guys come together for another week, right? So it's the process for this is totally different now, but this is the way it was when I was in. So then you take the 15 from one school, from school A, and the top 15 from school B. Those 30 guys come together for another week of tryout and testing. Out of those 30, let's say minor league baseball had 20 spots, right? Mm-hmm. You would get ranked 1 through 30. Well, the top 20 guys got jobs. The other 10 would go into a summer college league, like a holding spot, right?
No kidding.
Yeah. So the second year I went, I made it to that second tryout, that extra week, but I didn't make it. I got put in the college summer league again. So after that, I was only in that college summer league for like 2 weeks, and then I get the call, and I missed the call.
No.
Yeah, I was asleep. So
I heard the same real fast. I heard the same story from J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
When Trump called him to let him know that he wanted him to be his vice president.
Really?
He missed the call.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
Sorry. Crazy. Yeah, you're good.
Side thought.
Yeah, so I'm in Martinsville, Virginia, and I'm in a league where we're moving every single day. We're in a different town every day. And so you wake up about 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. You go eat lunch around 2 or 3. You go to the ballpark. Say you have a 7 o'clock game. You work the game at 7. Hopefully to God you're out of there by 10:30.
Mm-hmm.
The game's over by 10:30, and you're out of the ballpark by 11. Well, you're so wired up and from eating dinner and stuff, you're not going to bed till 3 or 4 in the morning, right? So the call when I wake up, I look at my phone, and it's the minor league supervisor. I'm like, So he's like, "Hey, this is Dusty. You mind giving me a call?" Yeah. So I call him back, and he's like, "Hey, Tyler." He's like, "I know it's been a long road for you, but we want to offer you a job in minor league baseball."
Oh my gosh!
Dude, that was like the call to the bigs, man. That was like, and
if you, as far as the listeners go, if you don't know what minor leagues is, so that's going to be, so say you're drafted by the Atlanta Braves. You don't just go straight to the Atlanta Braves.
Right.
You've got teams under that you've got to go through.
Yeah.
Single A, double A, triple A, and that's what Tyler's referring to as minor leagues.
And the umpires go through the same process as the players do.
Okay.
Right. The process for a player, they can get sent up and down, right? They can go to double A, straight to the bigs. Umpires aren't like that, right? Now they go up and down, but when I was in, you only could move up, right? If you had to go back down, you were released. We can get released just like the players, yeah. But the players, if one team don't like them, they can go to another team, right? They can get traded. But umpires, where are you going to go?
Yeah,
right? You don't have another team. But we work for the league, right? We work for the actual league that the teams play in. So say that you have the South Atlantic League, right? There's a group of teams that play in that league, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we work for the league office. We're a branch of the league office. And so after that, you just go to the different teams, right? We don't have any home games, right? So we're living out of a suitcase, living in hotels, which I'm used to, right? Because being on the road with the show, I'm used to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but a lot of guys, especially young guys going into pro ball, that was their first time like being away from home, you know?
Right.
So a lot of young guys, they struggle with that. And I've heard of guys being gone 2 weeks and just quitting because they hated being on the road. But yeah, that's how I got into minor league ball. I was in pro ball or affiliated ball for 2 years.
Let me ask you, overall, did you enjoy it?
I loved it. That's all I ever wanted to do.
So
being a catcher, playing, you're always talking to the guy behind you, you know, and just hearing his stories. So making that transition from behind the plate to working, it was no different.
So before we get into what you're doing now, how did that come to an end?
Yeah,
because I know you loved it, and I know that's something that was a dream of yours. So how did that come to an end?
Yeah, so I was in affiliated ball, which means I was under the Major League Baseball teams, right? So I did that in 2016 and 2017. After that, I went and worked independent ball, which is pro baseball, but they're not affiliated with no major league club.
Okay.
Right. The players are still getting paid. Everybody's still paying to get into the ballpark, but it's just not affiliated with a major league club. So I did that for 3 years. I worked the American Association, the Can-Am, and the Frontier League, and a few weeks in the Atlantic League. And so, which is basically minor league players or major league players that gotten released, and they can go play there, try to get picked back up. It's a second chance for them.
Okay.
Right? Or it's for some young kid out of college or high school that didn't get drafted, and they can go play in that league and try to get picked up by a big league club. But for us, it was a summer job. Right? I was gone from May to September. Right? So I'm still on the road for 5-6 months out of the year. Did that, went up to Alaska, worked the Alaskan college summer baseball league, which was awesome. I worked another year in the Northwoods League.
Did you live up there in Alaska, or would you just fly back and forth?
No, I was there for 2.5 months, so like 10 weeks. We was up there, just working baseball every day.
Really?
Yeah.
Alaska's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really awesome. It's totally different.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, man. Everybody needs to go up there at least once.
I'm a big cruise guy.
Go up
and
there.
I want to go. I want to go up there. I want to go on an Alaska cruise.
Yeah.
That'd be
Seeing
cool.
Down here we have deer. They have moose. Like you think a deer's big. A moose is like seeing a horse run out in front of you.
Yeah, I was about to say you think you hit a deer in a car. Imagine hitting a moose.
Yeah.
It's like hitting a house.
Yeah. But you asked me how it all come to an end. I was working the Frontier League, and man, you make brothers up there working in that.
Oh yeah.
Being in like the military, going through basic training and stuff together. Man, you come brothers with who you go through it with.
Oh, yeah.
And it is definitely
going through the trenches.
Yeah, it's definitely a grind because that's all you got out there. Because you got 2 teams yelling at you every night. All you got is the guys in blue with you. So I was in Chicago, and so you want to try to move up, right? You want to try to get to the next step. Well, I'd been in independent ball for 3 years, and I just wasn't going anywhere, and I knew I was at that plateau kind of moment.
And that's waiting to be called up.
Yeah, and
what is the percentage of people that get called up?
Very unlikely.
Really?
Yeah, you know that going in.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's so small.
Most umpires you see on TV in baseball,
those guys have been going through the system probably 12 to 13 years before they even get in the big leagues.
I was about to say they look a little aged.
Yeah. Yep. So I got one buddy right now. He graduated the same class I did, and he is just now getting to the point to working big league spring.
But you know what's crazy? You got umpires that are 100 times better than Angel Hernandez. But he did it for how long?
Everybody hates on Angel.
Hey, I'm hating on Angel. I'm not
I met Angel one time, and he was probably the nicest guy I'd ever met.
Really?
Yeah.
He can be nice if he wants to, but he's ruined a lot of baseball games.
Yeah, no comment.
I'm over here hating.
That's all part of it, man.
I'm just playing.
But no, the one time I met him, and most of those guys that I've met, I've went to lunch with like Dan Sonia. I've went and had dinner with him. He lives over in Marietta. But just super down to earth. Just people, man. And they know what you're going through.
Yeah.
They do the same thing for us. They'd send us pants if we needed pants.
Really?
Big league players send minor league guys stuff.
I'm a lazy boy umpire.
Yeah.
So I'm allowed to talk.
I am too.
I'm allowed to talk.
Yeah. That's part of it.
Yeah. I'm a lazy boy umpire.
But anyway, you asked me how it come to an end.
Yeah.
I was in Chicago. I was laying in my bed. It was like, man, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
You know, I got to that point, and I was like, I need something else, you know, because I need something. Because if I'm not chasing something, I'm worthless.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns into Groundhog Day kind of, where you just wake up, you go through the motions, you're doing the same thing every day. I can't do that. Like, I'm not built that way.
Have you ever had a job like that? I don't remember you.
So when COVID happened,
I'm doing the weave like
yeah,
Trump
you're good.
does.
Yeah, you're
I'm
good.
weaving off into something.
No,
we'll come right back.
No, that's actually a good one, because when COVID hit, baseball shut down. Like, it went away.
Yeah.
Well, we don't make much money, but so we have to get off-season jobs, you know. A lot of us work at FedEx,
Okay.
But I'd always had a love for aviation, right? So even when I was in high school, I would take flight lessons, you know, just to do it. You asked me, like, how did I get involved in aviation? It was just a love that I'd had.
So that'll be the next thing we talk about if we're going to move into that segment. So if you don't mind me cutting you off for just a second, that's one of the coolest things I think about you, dude, is the fact that you've got the balls to fly in an airplane. I think that is. I think not flying an airplane, but like fly a airplane. I think that's sick. there's a lot of folks that want to do that, and I'm sure would do that, and that's awesome. So bring it in, baby. Bring it on in here. So tell us how it happened.
So I was 19. I'd taken flight lessons, and so when COVID hit, I got a job working at the Atlanta airport. That way I could kind of get around airplanes, something I enjoyed doing. I refuse to go do something that I just absolutely hate and be miserable. I refuse to be miserable.
Getting that age too,
I will not be miserable. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'll go be a line guy, right? So the jet would come in. We would either dump the lav, help the people with their luggage, towing airplanes from spot to spot, stuff like that. Taking catering out to the airplanes, stuff like that. And so I did that for a year because baseball had shut down for that whole year in COVID. And aviation, we didn't get furloughed because people were still somewhat flying, right? So we were actually considered essential employees. So I had a job all the way through COVID, thankfully. And so baseball came back, and eventually I worked a few leagues from there. So quit working at the Atlanta airport, went back to baseball for 2 years. So said that to say this. Made it back I'm laying in my bed in Chicago, and I'm like, I need something to do. I need something to chase, something I enjoy doing. I'd gotten my private pilot's license during COVID, October of 21. I got my private pilot's license. And I'm laying in my bed in Chicago, and I call my dad. I'm like, hey, I said, I'm going to finish the year here doing baseball, but this is probably my last time. It's probably my last time working on the road. Like, I'm coming home.
A little burnout on it,
yeah. Yeah, I was burnt out. And this is like my 10th year on the road, right, doing baseball. So I come home, and me and my dad, we go visit a school. And he tells, and the guy, the flight instructor, he's like, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but get all your written tests done. And there's 3 different tests in aviation when you're going through training that you have to pass. You have to pass a written test, an oral exam, and like a practical exam, right?
Okay.
So this instructor, he tells me, if you plan on making it a career, get all the written tests out of the way. I was like, okay. And this is during the All-Star break of this last season that I'm doing. So I come home for the All-Star break. I go visit the school with my dad. And so when I went back out on the road, that's what I was doing. I was studying for all my tests. So when I got home, I got another job at another airport doing the exact same thing I was doing in Atlanta. And I meet another buddy, a friend of mine now, Daniel. He's like, you want to go to flight school? I was like, yeah. Like, I've already got all my tests done. Like, I knock out my instrument, my commercial, my instructor test. I knock all of them out. And I was like, yeah, but I'm having a problem getting a loan because I didn't have the money to go. It was like $100,000 like that you have to do. It's not cheap.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, it's not cheap at all.
Flight school.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, man.
Yeah, it's not cheap at all. And so my buddy Daniel, he's like, have you ever heard of this school up in North Carolina? I was like, no. He was like, well, I'm going to get his parents lived up there, and he was like, I'm going to go visit this school. You going to go with me? I was like, yeah. So me and my dad and him, we all meet in Atlanta. We take a flight to Raleigh, and we go visit the school, and we fly home the same day. Absolutely fell in love with the school. And so
really nice place.
Yeah, really nice place. And I wound up starting before my buddy did. So both of us, we quit our job. We move up to North Carolina, and we bust out all of our flight training within 8 months, right? Which normally takes people 2 to 3 years to complete. Me and him knock it out in like 8 months, which is really, really fast.
No kidding.
Really, really fast. And so came home from that. Now I'm an instructor teaching over here in Kennesaw, and I'm flying airplanes now.
So that's the coolest thing, man. It's the coolest thing to hear. So obviously the long-term goal is flying an Airbus, I assume, right?
Yeah, so the plan now is, so you have to have so many hours to be able to qualify to go fly for an airline.
Okay.
Right? So, again, chasing goals and setting goals to meet them. Now the goal is to make it to 1,500 hours with total time. And so I'm slowly working my way to that That way I can eventually go work for an airline and fly people around. And I'm still traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going right back to the traveling
Yeah,
thing.
going back to living out of a suitcase.
But getting paid good.
Yeah,
That's
a lot
the
better.
difference.
A lot better.
Getting paid a lot better. Yeah. So, like I said, man, I really, truthfully, from the bottom of my heart, I congratulate you, man. Seriously, on chasing dreams, doing what you want to do, putting the middle finger up to the man, and saying,
You're either with me or you're against me.
Well, I'm gonna go do what I want to do. I'm not gonna go do what everybody else does. I'm gonna go do what I want to do. And I've always thought that was cool. And and I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I really am. And I guess that's why we connect on that side.
Yeah.
You know, it's been fun, man.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me.
Dude, yeah. It's been good to catch up. I mean, you live right down the road, so
yeah,
we'll do a little porch talk here soon too.
Sure.
But yeah, brother, thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah,
That's going to be the end of Mic'd Up with Joe Webb. If you enjoy it, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother.